Ever wondered what happens when you dive deep into the chaotic world of Quahog at 3 in the morning? Tonight we're exploring the most bizarre, hilarious, and downright weird facts about Family Guy that'll keep your mind occupied while you drift off to sleep. From hidden Easter eggs to behind-the-scenes secrets that even longtime fans don't know. This collection of random Family Guy trivia is perfect for those late-night moments when you need something entertaining but not too stimulating. Picture this. You're lying in bed, scrolling through your phone, and suddenly you're wondering about the strangest details from America's most controversial animated family. Well, you're in luck, because we've gathered dozens of fascinating tidbits that reveal just how deep the rabbit hole goes in Seth MacFarlane's animated universe. Let's start with something that might surprise you about the show's origins. Family Guy actually premiered in 1999, making it older than The Sopranos, Lost, and even The Office. But here's the kicker. The show was canceled not once, but twice by Fox. The first cancellation happened in 2002 after 3 seasons, and then again in 2005 after being brought back for a 4th season. What saved it the second time? DVD sales and reruns on Adult Swim were so successful that Fox had no choice but to bring it back permanently. Speaking of cancellations, did you know that the famous episode where Stewie and Brian get locked in a bank vault was actually written as a potential series finale? The writers thought the show might not get renewed, so they created this bottle episode as a way to give fans closure while keeping production costs low. It ended up becoming one of the most beloved episodes in the entire series. Here's something that'll make you appreciate the voice acting even more. Seth MacFarlane voices 4 main characters: Peter, Brian, Stewie, and Glenn Quagmire. But what's really impressive is that he can switch between all these voices seamlessly during recording sessions. The man is basically having conversations with himself for hours at a time. Imagine being in that recording booth and watching him argue with himself as Peter and Stewie. Now let's talk about some hidden details you've probably never noticed. In the opening credits, when the family is sitting on the couch, Stewie is always holding a different object. Sometimes it's a teddy bear, sometimes a ray gun, and occasionally it's something completely random, like a pineapple. The animators change this detail regularly, but it's so subtle that most viewers never pick up on it. The Griffin's address has actually been revealed multiple times throughout the series, but it keeps changing. Sometimes they live at 31 Spooner Street, other times it's 29 Spooner Street. This isn't continuity error. It's an intentional joke about how cartoon families can basically live anywhere the writers need them to live for the sake of a gag. Here's a weird one. Meg's full name is actually Megatron Griffin. This was revealed in one episode as a throwaway joke, but it's technically canon. Her parents named her after the Transformers villain, which honestly explains a lot about why she turned out the way she did. Imagine going through high school with that on your birth certificate. The chicken fights between Peter and Ernie the Giant Chicken aren't just random acts of cartoon violence. They're actually parodies of classic action movie fight scenes. Each fight references different films, from They Live to The Matrix. The writers spend enormous amounts of time choreographing these sequences to match specific cinematic moments frame by frame. Speaking of references, Family Guy holds the unofficial record for most pop culture references in a single animated series. The writers keep a database of potential references organized by category, decade, and obscurity level. They literally have spreadsheets dedicated to tracking which celebrities they've already made fun of, and which ones are still fair game. Here's something about Brian that might change how you see him. His character was originally supposed to be much more of a background character, like a regular family pet who occasionally made sarcastic comments. But Seth MacFarlane enjoyed voicing him so much that Brian evolved into basically being Seth's mouthpiece for political and social commentary. This is why Brian often sounds like he's giving a college lecture. He essentially is. The Conway Twitty cutaways aren't just random musical interludes. They serve a specific purpose in television production. When episodes run short, the writers can insert these musical segments to pad out the runtime without having to animate new scenes or write additional dialogue. It's brilliant efficiency disguised as absurdist humor. Cleveland's house has been destroyed and rebuilt more times than any other location in the series. The writers keep track of this, and it's actually become a running competition among the staff to see who can come up with the most creative ways to demolish Cleveland's property. His house is basically the Kenny McCormick of buildings. Here's a detail about Quagmire that most people miss. His house number is 29, Peter's is 31, and Cleveland's was 33 before he moved away. But Joe's house number has never been consistently established, which has led to fan theories that he doesn't actually own his house and is just perpetually house-sitting for someone else. The famous "Whose line is it anyway" reference, where Peter lists random words, isn't actually random. Each word was carefully chosen to represent a different category of Family Guy humor. They're basically a roadmap of the show's comedic philosophy, hidden in plain sight. Stewie's accent has gradually changed over the years, from a thick British aristocrat voice to something more American. This wasn't accidental. Seth MacFarlane has said that maintaining the original accent was physically exhausting, so he's slowly been relaxing it as the series progressed. If you go back and watch early episodes, the difference is striking. The Pawtucket Brewery where Peter works is actually based on a real brewery in Rhode Island. The exterior shots are rotoscoped from actual footage of the Narragansett Brewery, though the interior is completely fictional. Local Rhode Islanders often spot familiar landmarks in the background of various episodes. Here's something about the show's animation. The characters' eyes are deliberately drawn to be slightly different sizes. Peter's left eye is always drawn slightly larger than his right, which gives him that perpetually confused expression. This asymmetry was added specifically to make him look more dopey and lovable. The reason death appears so frequently in early seasons is because the writers were originally planning to kill off a main character in every season finale, but Fox executives weren't comfortable with the concept. So death became a recurring character instead of a plot device, which is actually much funnier in hindsight. Lois's maiden name is Pewterschmidt, but her middle name has been given as both Marie and Nicole in different episodes. The writers claim this is intentional, suggesting that Lois has been lying about her middle name for years for reasons that will never be explained. The evil monkey in Chris's closet was originally supposed to be revealed as Chris's imaginary friend, but the writers decided it was funnier if he was completely real and just randomly living in their house. This decision led to one of the series' most beloved recurring characters. Here's something about the show's timeline. The Griffins have been celebrating the same holidays for over 20 years of real time, but they never age. However, the writers occasionally drop hints about the passage of time through background details like changing technology and evolving fashion trends in crowd scenes. The reason Peter's boss, Mr. Weed, died in such a bizarre way, choking on dinner rolls while watching Popeye, was because the writers wanted to establish that anyone could die at any time in the Family Guy universe for completely ridiculous reasons. It set the precedent for the show's approach to mortality as comedy. Tricia Takanawa's reporting segments are all written by the same staff writer who used to work in local television news. All of her ridiculous news stories are based on real absurd stories that the writer covered during his journalism career, just exaggerated for comedic effect. The Drunken Clam Bar where Peter and his friends hang out was modeled after Cheers, but the writers deliberately made it seedier and more depressing to contrast with that show's warm, welcoming atmosphere. It's meant to represent the difference between idealized television friendships and actual dysfunctional male bonding. Here's a weird production detail. The show's writers keep a cutaway database with hundreds of unused cutaway gags organized by setup line. If they need a quick cutaway for an episode that's running short, they can search the database by keyword and find something appropriate. Some of these unused cutaways eventually become the basis for entire episodes. The reason Herbert, the elderly neighbor, is so creepy isn't just for shock value, is inassigned. His character is actually a commentary on how society often ignores obvious warning signs about predatory behavior. The writers intentionally make him so obviously suspicious that it becomes absurd that no one in the show takes him seriously. Stewie's football-shaped head wasn't originally intentional. Seth MacFarlane was just a poor artist when he created the character, but the distinctive shape became so iconic that when the animation quality improved, they kept the weird proportions on purpose. The show's musical numbers aren't just random, they're specifically written to parody different Broadway and Hollywood musical styles. Each song is crafted to sound like it could come from a specific era of musical theater, from 1,930 seconds Hollywood musicals to modern Broadway productions. Here's something about the voice acting. When characters sing, Their speaking voice actors don't always do the singing. Several characters have dedicated singing voices who are professional Broadway performers. This is why some characters sound noticeably different when they break into song. The chicken that fights Peter is named Ernie, and he has his own detailed backstory that's never fully explained in the show. According to the writers, Ernie has a family, a mortgage, and a completely normal life outside of his inexplicable rivalry with Peter. His motivations remain mysterious intentionally. Roadhouse is referenced more than any other single movie in Family Guy, appearing in over 30 different episodes in various forms. The writers have said this started as an inside joke because they couldn't believe how seriously the movie takes itself, but it evolved into genuine affection for the film's absurdity. The Conway Twitty segments were actually Seth MacFarlane's way of paying tribute to his grandfather, who was a huge country music fan. MacFarlane has said these moments are among his favorites in the entire series because they remind him of watching old variety shows with his grandfather. Meg's unpopularity isn't just a running gag. It's a deliberate commentary on how middle children often get overlooked in family dynamics. The writers have given her hidden depths that occasionally surface, suggesting she's actually the most emotionally intelligent member of the family despite being constantly ignored. The show's animation style deliberately mimics the look of 1,980 Saturday morning cartoons, complete with slightly off-model character designs and limited animation techniques. This was intentional, as MacFarlane wanted the show to feel nostalgic and slightly cheap, like the cartoons he grew up watching. Here's a detail about the opening theme. The lyrics were written to sound like a generic sitcom theme song, but they're actually describing a completely dysfunctional family situation. The cheerful melody masks the fact that the words are talking about how nothing in this family works properly. The reason Family Guy episodes often feel like collections of unrelated sketches is because that's exactly what they are. The writers start with a basic premise and then build around it with whatever random ideas they've been wanting to explore. This approach gives the show its unique, chaotic energy. So there you have it. Dozens of random Family Guy facts to occupy your mind as you drift off to sleep. From production secrets to hidden meanings, the world of Family Guy is far more complex and deliberate than it might appear on the surface. Whether you're a longtime fan or just discovering the show, these little details add extra layers to every rewatch. Sweet dreams. And remember, somewhere in Quahog, Peter Griffin is probably doing something spectacularly stupid, while Stewie plots world domination, and Brian writes terrible novels. The chaos never stops in the Griffin household, and honestly, we wouldn't want it any other way. Picture this. You're lying in bed, eyes heavy, ready to drift off to sleep, but your mind is still buzzing. Maybe you need something to help you unwind, something familiar and comforting that won't keep you too engaged. Well, tonight we're diving into the weird and wonderful world of Family Guy, with some absolutely wild facts that might just be the perfect bedtime companion. These aren't your typical trivia tidbits. We're talking about the kind of behind-the-scenes secrets and bizarre details that make this show the cultural phenomenon it became. Let me start with something that'll blow your mind right away. Did you know that Family Guy was actually canceled not once, but twice? Yeah, you heard that right. The show got the axe in 2002 after just 3 seasons, then came back in 2005, only to get canceled again in 2007. But here's where it gets interesting. The show's resurrection wasn't because of some executive's change of heart or a passionate fan campaign, though those things helped. It was actually because of DVD sales and reruns on Adult Swim that proved the show had a massive audience that networks had completely missed. The numbers were staggering. When Fox looked at the DVD sales figures, they realized they'd made a colossal mistake. The first season DVD became one of the best-selling TV show DVDs of all time, moving over 1 million copies in its first year. Adult Swim was paying Fox millions for the rerun rights, and the ratings were through the roof. It was like discovering you'd thrown away a winning lottery ticket, except you could still fish it out of the trash. But here's something even weirder about the show's cancellation drama. Seth MacFarlane, the creator, was actually somewhat relieved when it got canceled the first time. He was completely burned out from working insane hours, writing, voice acting, and overseeing every aspect of production. The guy was doing the voices for 3 main characters while running the entire show. When Fox pulled the plug, he thought his animation career might be over, but he also felt like he could finally breathe again. Speaking of Seth MacFarlane, here's a fact that'll keep you up at night thinking about alternate timelines. He was supposed to be on American Airlines Flight 11 on September 11th, 2001, the flight that hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. He missed it because his travel agent gave him the wrong departure time, and he showed up to the gate 10 minutes after boarding had ended. He was hungover from partying the night before and almost didn't go to the airport at all. That single hangover and miscommunication might have changed television history forever. Now let's talk about something that'll make you appreciate the show's attention to detail. Every single Conway Twitty cutaway gag. You know those random moments where the show just cuts to the country singer performing for what feels like an eternity? Those weren't just random filler. They were actually Seth MacFarlane's way of trolling both the network and the audience. He knew these segments would drive people absolutely crazy, but he also knew they couldn't be cut because they were integral to reaching the episode's required runtime. The Conway Twitty thing became such a phenomenon that it spawned its own internal mythology at the show. Writers would pitch entire episodes around how they could work in a Conway Twitty segment. They'd sit in the writer's room timing these segments down to the second, calculating exactly how much actual story content they could replace with a dead country singer performing on stage. It was comedic genius disguised as laziness. Here's something that might surprise you about the show's voice acting. You know how Brian the dog sounds so sophisticated and intellectual? Well, Seth MacFarlane based that voice on his own natural speaking voice, but slightly more pretentious. He said in interviews that Brian represents the version of himself he'd be if he let his college education go to his head. The character became a way for MacFarlane to explore his own intellectual insecurities and liberal political views through a talking dog. But the really fascinating part is how the other voice actors developed their characters. Alex Borstein, who voices Lois, originally auditioned for a completely different character on a different show MacFarlane was developing. When that project fell through, he remembered her voice and wrote Lois specifically for her. The character's Long Island accent and particular speech patterns are actually based on Borstein's own family members. Seth Green, who voices Chris, has admitted that he sometimes forgets he's supposed to be playing a teenager. He said the character's voice just comes naturally to him because it's basically his own voice from when he was going through puberty, which apparently lasted well into his 20s. The character's dim-witted but lovable personality evolved because Green kept improvising lines that made the writers laugh during recording sessions. Now here's a production fact that'll make you realize how much work goes into seemingly simple animation. Each episode of Family Guy takes approximately 8 to 9 months to produce, from script to final broadcast. The writing process alone can take several months, with jokes being written, rewritten, and completely scrapped dozens of times. Then there's the voice recording, which happens in multiple sessions as scripts get revised. The animation process is where things get really wild. Every single frame has to be drawn by hand, even though the show uses computer software to assist with the process. A single 22-minute episode contains roughly 16,000 individual drawings. When you think about the fact that the show has produced over 400 episodes, that's literally millions of individual drawings that have brought these characters to life. But here's something that'll make you appreciate the show's cultural impact even more. Family Guy popularized the random cutaway gag format that's now become standard in animated comedy. Before Family Guy, most animated shows followed more traditional narrative structures. The show's willingness to completely abandon the main plot for a 30-second historical recreation or pop culture reference changed how comedy writers think about pacing and attention spans. The cutaway gags themselves have become a cultural phenomenon. There are entire YouTube channels dedicated to compiling them, and they've been referenced and parodied by countless other shows. But here's what's really interesting. The writers have admitted that sometimes they write the cutaway gag first, then build an entire episode around finding a way to naturally lead into it. Let's talk about something that might disturb your peaceful drift toward sleep, the show's relationship with censorship. Family Guy has been censored, banned, and protested more than almost any other primetime animated series. The Parents Television Council has named it the worst show on television multiple times. But here's the thing. All that controversy has only made the show more popular. The censorship battles have led to some genuinely creative solutions from the writers. When they can't say certain words or show certain images, they find increasingly elaborate ways to imply them. Some of the show's funniest moments have come from these creative workarounds. It's like watching a comedian perform with their hands tied behind their back, and somehow becoming even funnier because of the constraint. Here's a fact about the show's music that might surprise you. Seth MacFarlane is actually a classically trained vocalist who's released several albums of standards and jazz music. His musical background heavily influences the show's frequent musical numbers and elaborate song and dance sequences. Those aren't just random additions. They're MacFarlane showing off skills he developed long before he ever got into animation. The musical episodes of Family Guy often take months of additional preparation because they require completely different animation techniques, additional voice coaching for the actors, and original orchestral arrangements. The Blue Harvest Star Wars parody episodes alone required hiring an entire orchestra to record new versions of John Williams' iconic themes. Now, let's dive into something that'll make you think about celebrity culture differently. The show's celebrity cameos and parodies have occasionally led to real-world consequences for the celebrities involved. Some stars have embraced being mocked on the show, treating it as a badge of honor. Others have publicly complained or even threatened legal action. But here's what's really fascinating. Some celebrities have specifically requested to be made fun of on Family Guy because they know it'll keep them relevant in pop culture. The show has become such a cultural touchstone that being parodied on it is almost like being inducted into a Hall of Fame of American entertainment figures. The writers have developed an entire system for deciding which celebrities to target. They consider factors like current relevance, comedic potential, and likelihood of legal retaliation. There's literally a legal department that reviews every celebrity reference to make sure the show won't get sued into oblivion. Here's something about the show's international appeal that might keep your mind wandering as you fall asleep. Family Guy airs in over 100 countries, but many episodes have to be heavily edited or completely banned in certain regions due to cultural sensitivities or government censorship. The writers have become experts at predicting which jokes will translate across cultures and which ones will get the show pulled off the air in entire countries. The international dubbing process is particularly fascinating. Voice actors in different countries have to capture not just the literal translations of the jokes, but also the timing, delivery, and cultural references that make the humor work. Sometimes entire scenes have to be rewritten for different markets, with completely different jokes that serve the same narrative function. Speaking of narrative function, here's something about the show's storytelling that might surprise you. Despite its reputation for random, stream-of-consciousness humor, every episode follows extremely strict structural guidelines. The writers use a detailed formula for pacing, character development, and plot progression that's remained virtually unchanged since the show's early seasons. The formula is so precise that new writers go through extensive training to learn it. They practice writing sample episodes that hit specific comedic beats at exact timing intervals. It's like learning to write music in a very particular key and tempo. There's way more technical skill involved than most viewers realize. Here's a production detail that'll make you appreciate the voice actors even more. Most of the main voice cast records their lines together in the same studio, which is actually unusual for animated shows. Many animated series record each actor separately for scheduling convenience. But Family Guy's ensemble cast has developed such strong chemistry that they actually improvise and play off each other during recording sessions. These improvisation sessions have led to some of the show's most memorable moments. Jokes that weren't in the original script, character interactions that reveal new personality traits, and entire comedic sequences that grew out of the actors just goofing around in the studio. The writers have learned to leave space in their scripts for this kind of spontaneous creativity. The show's relationship with current events is another fascinating aspect of its production. Episodes are produced so far in advance that writers have to predict what will be culturally relevant 8 to 9 months in the future. They've developed an almost supernatural ability to anticipate which celebrities will still be famous, which political issues will still matter, and which pop culture references will still be funny by the time episodes air. Sometimes they get it spectacularly wrong, leading to episodes that reference celebrities who've completely disappeared from public consciousness, or make jokes about events that ended up being resolved in completely different ways. These temporal mismatches have become part of the show's charm, creating accidental time capsules of what people were thinking about during specific periods. Here's something about the show's merchandise empire that might occupy your thoughts as you drift off. Family Guy generates hundreds of millions of dollars in merchandise sales annually, from t-shirts and mugs to video games and Halloween costumes. The licensing department has to approve thousands of product designs, ensuring that everything maintains the show's comedic voice while being commercially viable. The most successful merchandise items are often the most random ones. Stewie's football head design became a best-selling plush toy. Brian's martini glass became a popular bar accessory. Peter's chicken fight with Ernie became an entire line of action figures. These products have introduced the show to audiences who might never watch it on television. As we wind down our journey through the bizarre world of Family Guy facts, here's one last thing to ponder as you close your eyes. The show has fundamentally changed how we consume comedy. It's trained an entire generation of viewers to expect rapid-fire jokes, constant pop culture references, and narrative structures that can pivot in completely unexpected directions at any moment. This influence extends far beyond television. You can see Family Guy's impact in internet memes, social media humor, and even in how people tell stories in everyday conversation. The show's cutaway gag structure has become a template for how we process and share information in the digital age. Those random tangents and seemingly unrelated references? They're everywhere now, from Twitter threads to TikTok videos. The show created a new language of comedy that's become so pervasive we barely notice it anymore. When someone starts telling a story, then suddenly pivots to a completely unrelated memory that somehow connects back to the original point, they're unconsciously using a Family Guy narrative structure. When someone makes a reference to an obscure piece of pop culture from decades ago to explain something happening today, they're speaking fluent Family Guy. So there you have it. As you drift off to sleep tonight, you can rest easy, knowing that somewhere in the world, animators are drawing thousands of individual frames to bring new episodes to life. Voice actors are improvising lines that will make millions of people laugh, and writers are crafting jokes that will still be quoted years from now. The strange, wonderful, chaotic world of Family Guy continues to evolve, one random cutaway gag at a time. Sweet dreams. And remember, if you find yourself having weird dreams about talking dogs, evil babies, or inexplicably long Conway Twitty performances, you'll know exactly where those images came from. The show that changed comedy forever has probably infiltrated your subconscious too, joining the ranks of viewers who've been shaped by its unique brand of organized chaos. Picture this. You're settling in for a cozy night, getting ready to drift off into dreamland, but instead of counting sheep, how about we count some truly wild facts about one of television's most unpredictable animated families? Tonight, we're diving deep into the bizarre, hilarious, and surprisingly intricate world of Family Guy, and trust me, by the end of this journey, you'll have enough random trivia rattling around in your brain to either help you fall asleep or keep you up all night wondering how Seth MacFarlane's mind works. Let's start with something that might surprise you about the show's origins. Family Guy almost never existed in the form we know today. Back in the late 90s, Seth MacFarlane was working at Hanna-Barbera, the legendary animation studio behind classics like The Flintstones and The Jetsons. He created a short film called The Life of Larry for his thesis project at the Rhode Island School of Design, which featured many of the characters who would eventually become the Griffin family. The short was so impressive that it caught the attention of Fox executives. But here's where it gets interesting. MacFarlane was only 24 years old when he pitched the show, making him one of the youngest creators in television history to get a primetime animated series greenlit. The original concept was quite different from what we see today. Peter Griffin was initially going to be much more of a traditional sitcom dad. Think more like Homer Simpson, but without the yellow skin. The character's personality evolved significantly during the development process, becoming the lovably obnoxious and often controversial figure we know now. MacFarlane has mentioned in interviews that he drew inspiration from his own father's mannerisms and speech patterns, particularly the distinctive Rhode Island accent that Peter sports throughout the series. Here's a fact that might make you appreciate the show's complexity a bit more surface. The average Family Guy episode contains over 300 individual drawings. Each 22-minute episode requires thousands of hours of work from dozens of artists, animators, and voice actors. The animation process alone takes approximately 8 months from initial script to final product, which explains why the show's production schedule is so carefully planned out years in advance. Speaking of voice acting, Seth MacFarlane performs the voices of 4 main characters: Peter, Brian, Stewie, and Glenn Quagmire. But here's something that might blow your mind. He records all of their dialogue separately, often having conversations with himself that last for hours. MacFarlane has described the experience as somewhat surreal, especially when he's voicing emotional scenes between characters like Brian and Stewie, who have some of the most complex relationships on the show. The character of Stewie Griffin deserves special attention because his development represents one of the most dramatic character evolution arcs in animated television history. Originally conceived as a straightforward villain baby bent on world domination and matricide, Stewie gradually transformed into a more nuanced character, exploring themes of sexuality, intelligence, and family dynamics. The shift was so gradual that many viewers didn't notice it happening over the course of several seasons. MacFarlane has stated that this evolution was intentional, reflecting his own growth as a writer and his desire to explore more sophisticated storytelling within the animated comedy format. One of the most fascinating aspects of Family Guy's production involves their approach to cutaway gags, those random tangential moments that have become the show's signature. The writers maintain what they call a gag bank, which is essentially a massive database of potential cutaway ideas that they can draw from when constructing episodes. Some of these gags were written years before they actually appeared on screen, waiting for the right episode and context to make them work. The process of selecting which gags make it into episodes involves multiple rounds of testing and refinement, with the writers constantly evaluating whether a particular joke will land with audiences or fall flat. The show's relationship with controversy has been both a blessing and a curse throughout its run. Family Guy has been canceled twice by Fox, first in 2002 after 3 seasons, and then brought back in 2005 due to strong DVD sales and reruns on Adult Swim. The second cancellation never actually happened, but the show came close several times due to various controversies and ratings fluctuations. What's interesting is that many of the episodes that generated the most controversy also ended up being some of the most popular, suggesting that the show's willingness to push boundaries is intrinsically linked to its success. The voice acting ensemble deserves recognition for their incredible consistency and chemistry. Alex Borstein, who voices Lois, actually auditioned for the role while she was performing in the sketch comedy group MAD-TV. Her distinctive voice for Lois was inspired by her own grandmother, and she's mentioned that she sometimes forgets she's not using her natural speaking voice when recording Lois scenes. Mila Kunis, who voices Meg, was only 14 years old when she started on the show, making her one of the youngest voice actors to land a major role in prime-time animation. The show's musical elements often go unnoticed, but they represent a significant portion of the production effort. Family Guy features more original music than most animated series, with MacFarlane himself composing many of the songs and musical numbers. His background in musical theater strongly influences these segments, and many episodes feature elaborate musical sequences that require additional voice actors, musicians, and extended animation sequences. The episode Road to the Multiverse alone featured over 40 different animation styles and required nearly double the typical production time. Here's something that might surprise fans of the show's seemingly random humor. Family Guy episodes are actually meticulously structured according to classical comedy writing principles. Each episode follows a 3-act structure with carefully planned pacing and timing. The cutaway gags aren't randomly inserted. They're strategically placed to provide relief from main plot tension or to enhance particular jokes. The writers spend considerable time in the editing process, adjusting the timing of these elements to maximize comedic impact. The show's impact on popular culture extends far beyond television. Family Guy has spawned countless internet memes, influenced other animated series, and even affected the way people communicate online. Phrases like, "Oh my God, who the hell cares?" and "What the deuce?" have entered common usage, and the show's irreverent style has influenced everything from advertising to political commentary. The series has also been credited with helping to revive interest in animated comedy among adult audiences, paving the way for shows like Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman. One of the most technically impressive aspects of Family Guy involves their approach to celebrity impressions and guest voices. The show has featured hundreds of celebrity guest stars over the years, but what's remarkable is how they integrate these appearances into the show's established comic rhythm. Many celebrities have mentioned that recording for Family Guy requires a different approach than traditional voice acting because the timing and delivery style is so specific to the show's aesthetic. The international versions of Family Guy, present fascinating variations on the original concept. In different countries, certain cultural references are modified or replaced entirely to make sense to local audiences. The German version, for example, includes completely different cutaway gags that reference German culture and history. These adaptations require not just translation but complete rewriting of significant portions of episodes, essentially creating parallel versions of the same show. Behind the scenes, the Family Guy writing room operates more like a comedy club than a traditional television writing environment. Writers regularly perform their ideas for each other, and the collaborative process involves a lot of improvisation and spontaneous joke development. MacFarlane has described the experience as one of the most creatively fulfilling aspects of producing the show, and many writers who have worked on Family Guy have gone on to create their own successful comedy series. The show's approach to social commentary often flies under the radar because it's wrapped in such outrageous humor. Many episodes tackle serious subjects like politics, religion, and social justice, but they do so through such an absurdist lens that the commentary becomes almost subliminal. This technique allows the show to address controversial topics while maintaining its primarily comedic focus, though it also means that viewers can interpret the show's messages in wildly different ways. Family Guy's influence on animation technology shouldn't be overlooked either. The show was among the first animated series to extensively use digital animation techniques, and their production pipeline has been studied and emulated by animation studios worldwide. The efficiency of their animation process allows them to produce episodes more quickly than many competing shows, which is part of why they've been able to maintain such a consistent release schedule for so many years. The merchandising empire surrounding Family Guy represents another fascinating aspect of the show's cultural impact. From action figures to clothing lines to video games, the show has spawned a massive array of consumer products. What's interesting is how these products often feature jokes and dusky references that only hardcore fans would understand, creating multiple tiers of engagement with the show's content. The show's relationship with censorship provides insight into how television content standards have evolved over the past 2 decades. Early episodes of Family Guy pushed boundaries that were considered quite shocking at the time, but many of those same jokes would barely register as controversial today. The series has served as a kind of barometer for changing social attitudes about humor, language, and acceptable content on television. Looking at Family Guy's longevity, it's remarkable that a show built around such seemingly random humor has maintained relevance for over 2 decades. Part of this success stems from the flexibility of the format, NEN, because the show isn't tied to realistic character development or consistent continuity. It can adapt to changing cultural contexts much more easily than traditional sitcoms. Characters can be completely different from episode to episode without breaking the show's internal logic. The voice recording process for Family Guy involves some unique challenges that most animated shows don't face. Because so many characters are voiced by the same actors, recording sessions often require complex scheduling to allow for quick character switches. MacFarlane, in particular, has developed techniques for rapidly shifting between his different character voices, sometimes switching between Peter and Brian mid-sentence during recording sessions. Family Guy's impact on comedy writing extends beyond animation, into live-action television and film. Many comedy writers cite the show's fearless approach to offensive humor and its willingness to commit fully to absurd premises as influential in their own work. The show's success proved that audiences were hungry for comedy that didn't follow traditional rules about likability or moral messaging. The technical aspects of producing Family Guy's signature visual style involve more complexity than might be immediately apparent. The seemingly simple character designs actually require precise consistency across hundreds of artists working on each episode. The show maintains detailed style guides that specify everything from the exact curve of Peter's chin to the precise shade of Brian's fur, ensuring visual continuity across different animation teams and production facilities. As we wind down this journey through the wonderfully weird world of Family Guy, it's worth noting that the show continues to evolve and surprise audiences after more than 20 years on the air. Whether you love it or hate it, there's no denying that Family Guy has carved out a unique place in television history, pushing boundaries and challenging expectations in ways that few shows ever attempt. So, there you have it, a deep dive into the bizarre, brilliant, and sometimes bewildering universe of Family Guy. From its humble beginnings as a college thesis project to its status as one of the longest-running animated series in television history, The show represents a fascinating case study in how unconventional creativity can find mainstream success. Sweet dreams. And remember, in the world of Family Guy, literally anything can happen, and usually does. Want to drift off to sleep while learning some wild Family Guy facts? Perfect. Let me take you on a gentle journey through the chaotic world of Quahog, Rhode Island, where nothing is quite what it seems, and everything is fair game for comedy. Family Guy first aired on January 31st, 1999, and from day one it was clear this wasn't your typical animated sitcom. Created by Seth MacFarlane when he was just 24 years old, the show began as his senior thesis project at the Rhode Island School of Design. That student film caught the attention of Fox executives, who saw something special in MacFarlane's irreverent humor and distinctive animation style. The Griffin family consists of Peter, the well-meaning but often clueless father who works at a toy factory, Lois, his patient wife from a wealthy family, their 3 children Meg, Chris, and baby Stewie, plus Brian, their intellectual talking dog. What makes this family unique isn't just that their dog can speak, but that each character represents a different comedic archetype pushed to its absolute extreme. Stewie Griffin, the baby with the British accent and sophisticated vocabulary, wasn't originally meant to be the breakout character he became. In early seasons, his primary motivation was world domination and eliminating his mother Lois. His elaborate schemes and advanced technology created some of the show's most memorable moments. The character's intelligence was so advanced that he built time machines, created clones of himself, and developed weapons that would make military contractors jealous. The show's cutaway gags became its signature storytelling device. These random flashbacks and tangential scenes allowed writers to explore absurd scenarios without worrying about plot continuity. One moment Peter might be arguing with his neighbor, and suddenly we're transported to medieval times or watching a parody of a classic movie. This technique gave Family Guy unlimited creative freedom and became one of its most beloved features. Brian the dog serves as the show's voice of reason, though he's far from perfect. He's an aspiring writer who never quite achieves his literary dreams, a liberal who often comes across as pretentious, and an alcoholic who struggles with personal relationships. His friendship with baby Stewie created some of the series' most touching and hilarious moments, as these 2 unlikely companions embarked on adventures through time and space. The show's relationship with censorship has always been complicated. From its earliest episodes, Family Guy pushed boundaries that other animated shows wouldn't dare approach. The writers seemed to delight in finding new ways to shock audiences while still maintaining enough heart to keep viewers emotionally invested. This balancing act between outrageous humor and genuine emotion became the series' trademark. Family Guy's cancellation and resurrection story reads like a television miracle. After 3 seasons, Fox canceled the show due to declining ratings. However, reruns on Adult Swim and strong DVD sales demonstrated that the show had found its audience. Fan campaigns and impressive syndication numbers convinced Fox to bring the series back, making Family Guy one of the few shows to return from cancellation and achieve even greater success. The voice acting on Family Guy deserves special recognition. Seth MacFarlane voices not only Brian and Stewie, but also Peter Griffin and Glenn Quagmire, among others. His ability to switch between these distinct characters, often within the same scene, showcases remarkable vocal range. The supporting cast, including Alex Borstein as Lois, Mila Kunis as Meg, and Seth Green as Chris, brings depth and personality to their roles that extends far beyond simple cartoon voice work. Music plays a surprisingly important role in Family Guy's appeal. The show regularly features elaborate musical numbers that parody Broadway productions, classic films, or popular songs. These sequences often become standalone entertainment pieces that fans remember long after episodes end. MacFarlane's background in musical theater influences these segments, bringing professional quality arrangements and performances to animated comedy. The show's pop culture references span decades and genres. Whether parodying Star Wars, paying homage to classic television shows, or making jokes about contemporary celebrities, Family Guy operates as a cultural time capsule. These references create layers of humor that reward viewers with broad cultural knowledge while still remaining accessible to casual audiences. Family Guy's international success surprised many industry observers. The show airs in over 100 countries and has been translated into dozens of languages. What works as American humor apparently translates well across cultural boundaries, though some countries have edited or banned certain episodes due to content concerns. The animation style of Family Guy deliberately evokes classic television cartoons while incorporating modern techniques. The character designs are simple yet expressive, allowing for quick production turnaround while maintaining visual consistency. This approach enables the show to tackle current events and topical humor without lengthy production delays. Behind the scenes, Family Guy employs a large writing staff that includes many comedy veterans. The writer's room operates on collaborative principles where any idea, no matter how outrageous, gets consideration. This environment encourages creativity and risk-taking that translates directly into the show's unpredictable content. The show's treatment of controversial topics has evolved over its run. Early episodes pushed boundaries primarily for shock value, but later seasons began incorporating more sophisticated social commentary. This evolution reflects both changing cultural attitudes and the writer's growing confidence in addressing serious subjects through comedy. Family Guy merchandise extends far beyond typical television tie-ins. From clothing and toys to video games and books, the Griffin family's image appears on countless products. The show's quotable dialogue and memorable visual gags translate well to consumer goods, creating additional revenue streams that support continued production. The relationship between Family Guy and The Simpsons has fascinated animation fans for years. While both shows feature dysfunctional families and satirical humor, their approaches differ significantly. Family Guy's more chaotic structure and willingness to break narrative rules contrasts with The Simpsons' more grounded storytelling approach, yet both shows clearly influence each other. Guest stars on Family Guy include major Hollywood names who often play exaggerated versions of themselves. These appearances usually involve the celebrities being subjected to the same irreverent treatment as any other target of the show's humor. The willingness of famous people to participate suggests that being mocked on Family Guy has become a strange mark of cultural relevance. The show's impact on internet culture cannot be overstated. Countless memes, video clips, and quotable moments from Family Guy circulate online constantly. The show's visual humor and memorable one-liners make it perfect for social media sharing, extending its cultural reach far beyond traditional television viewing. Family Guy's production schedule requires incredible efficiency. Animated shows typically have longer lead times than live-action productions, but Family Guy maintains a pace that allows for relatively current topical humor. This balance between animation constraints and comedy timing requires careful planning and execution from the entire production team. The show's portrayal of religion, politics, and social issues often generates discussion and debate. Rather than taking consistent ideological positions, Family Guy seems more interested in finding humor in all perspectives. This approach allows the show to maintain broad appeal, while still engaging with serious topics that matter to audiences. Character development on Family Guy follows unusual patterns compared to traditional television. While most shows feature characters who grow and change over time, Family Guy characters often reset to their baseline personalities between episodes. This approach prioritizes comedy over continuity, allowing writers maximum flexibility in crafting jokes and storylines. The economics of Family Guy's success demonstrate the value of patient investment in creative content. The show's initial cancellation and subsequent revival created a case study in how dedicated fan bases can rescue quality entertainment. This success story has influenced how networks evaluate shows with devoted but initially small audiences. Family Guy's influence on other animated comedies is clearly visible across the television landscape. Shows that followed have adopted similar rapid-fire joke delivery, pop culture references, and willingness to break conventional narrative rules. The series helped establish a new template for adult animated comedy that continues inspiring creators today. The show's approach to historical events and figures creates educational opportunities wrapped in entertainment. While the historical accuracy might be questionable, Family Guy's treatment of past events encourages viewers to learn more about the real stories behind the jokes. This combination of education and entertainment reaches audiences who might otherwise avoid traditional historical programming. Family Guy's live-action sequences and special episodes demonstrate the creative team's willingness to experiment with format. These departures from standard animated episodes show technical ambition and creative risk-taking that keeps the series fresh after more than 2 decades on air. The show's international versions sometimes feature localized content while maintaining the core Family Guy sensibility. These adaptations highlight how universal certain types of humor can be, while also showing how comedy must sometimes adapt to specific cultural contexts. As we wrap up this gentle exploration of Family Guy's world, remember that behind all the chaos and controversy lies a show created by people who genuinely love comedy and aren't afraid to push boundaries in pursuit of laughs. Whether you find Family Guy hilarious or offensive probably depends on your personal comedy preferences, but there's no denying its impact on television and popular culture. The Griffin family continues their adventures in Quahog, bringing their particular brand of mayhem to audiences around the world. From Stewie's latest schemes to Peter's newest workplace disaster, from Brian's philosophical observations to the family's bizarre encounters with neighbors and celebrities, Family Guy remains a unique voice in animated television. So as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you'll dream of talking dogs and time-traveling babies, of elaborate musical numbers and impossible sight gags. In the world of Family Guy, anything can happen, and usually does. Sweet dreams. And remember that in Quahog, Rhode Island, normal is just a setting on the washing machine that nobody ever uses. The show's legacy continues growing with each new episode. Each new generation of fans discovering the Griffin family's adventures for the first time. Whether Family Guy maintains its edge or evolves with changing times, one thing remains certain. Peter, Lois, Meg, Chris, Stewie, and Brian have earned their place in television history as one of the most distinctive and memorable animated families ever created.
Have you ever wondered what secrets lurk behind one of television's most controversial animated series? Tonight, we're diving deep into the bizarre, hilarious, and sometimes shocking world of Family Guy, with facts so fascinating they might just help you drift off to sleep. But trust me, you'll want to stay awake for these incredible revelations about Seth MacFarlane's groundbreaking creation. Picture this. It's 1999, and a young animator named Seth MacFarlane is sitting in his tiny apartment, sketching out what would become one of the most polarizing shows in television history. Little did he know that his crude drawings of a dysfunctional Rhode Island family would spawn over 2 decades of entertainment, controversy, and cultural impact that continues to this day. Family Guy didn't just stumble into existence by accident. The show's origin story is actually rooted in MacFarlane's college thesis project at the Rhode Island School of Design. Back in 1995, he created a short film called The Life of Larry, featuring a middle-aged man named Larry and his talking dog. This 9-minute animated short caught the attention of television executives and eventually evolved into the Family Guy we know today. What's remarkable is that many of the core elements from that original student film made it directly into the series, proving that sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places. The casting process for Family Guy reveals some truly surprising facts that most fans never discover. Seth MacFarlane himself voices not just 1, but 4 major characters in the show. He's the voice behind Peter Griffin, Brian the dog, Stewie Griffin, and Glenn Quagmire. What's even more impressive is that MacFarlane can seamlessly switch between these vastly different vocal personalities during recording sessions, often having entire conversations with himself as different characters. The other voice actors frequently joke that they feel like they're working with a one-man show, since MacFarlane essentially carries the comedic weight of multiple personalities. Alex Borstein, who voices Lois Griffin, actually wasn't the original choice for the character. The role was initially offered to Lacey Chabert, who you might recognize from Mean Girls and Party of 5. Chabert did voice Meg Griffin in the early seasons, but scheduling conflicts led to her departure, and Mila Kunis stepped in to take over. Meanwhile, Borstein had been working as a writer and consultant on the show before landing the role of Lois, making her transition to voice acting feel completely natural. The show's animation style might look simple, but there's incredible complexity hidden beneath those seemingly basic character designs. Each episode of Family Guy requires approximately 8 months to complete from initial script to final broadcast. The animation process involves hundreds of artists, animators, and technicians working across multiple studios. What's particularly fascinating is that the show uses a hybrid approach, combining traditional hand-drawn animation with computer-generated elements. Those elaborate fight scenes and musical numbers that fans love so much often require specialized animation techniques that push the boundaries of television production budgets. Speaking of production, Family Guy has one of the most unusual writing rooms in television. The writer's room operates more like a comedy club than a traditional television writing environment. Writers are encouraged to pitch their wildest, most outrageous ideas without any filters. Many of the show's most memorable cutaway gags actually come from spontaneous brainstorming sessions where writers try to one-up each other with increasingly absurd scenarios. The famous "Bird is the Word" episode, for example, originated from a writer casually mentioning the old Trashmen song, which then spiraled into an entire episode concept within hours. The show's relationship with censorship and network standards has created some legendary behind-the-scenes stories. During its early years on Fox, Family Guy constantly pushed against network restrictions, leading to numerous battles over content. Some episodes were heavily edited or had entire segments removed before airing. Interestingly, when the show moved to Adult Swim and later back to Fox with renewed popularity, many of these previously censored segments were restored in DVD releases and streaming versions, giving fans access to the creator's original, uncensored vision. Family Guy's cancellation and resurrection story reads like something out of a Hollywood fairy tale. After 3 seasons, Fox canceled the show in 2002 due to declining ratings. However, something unprecedented happened. DVD sales and Adult Swim reruns created a massive surge in popularity. Fans organized campaigns, online petitions gained hundreds of thousands of signatures, and merchandise sales skyrocketed. This grassroots movement convinced Fox to revive the series in 2005, making Family Guy one of the first shows in television history to be brought back to life primarily due to fan demand and home video success. The show's cultural impact extends far beyond television screens. Family Guy has influenced internet culture in ways that most people don't realize. Many popular memes and viral video formats can trace their origins back to Family Guy episodes. The show's cutaway gag structure has become a template for online content creators, and phrases like "freakin' sweet" and "giggity giggity" have entered everyday vocabulary. Social media platforms are filled with Family Guy reaction GIFs and quotes, demonstrating the show's lasting influence on digital communication. Seth MacFarlane's musical background plays a crucial role in Family Guy's identity that often goes unnoticed. MacFarlane is an accomplished jazz singer and pianist who has released several albums and performed with major orchestras. This musical talent directly influences the show's frequent musical numbers and elaborate song and dance sequences. When characters break into song, MacFarlane often personally composes the music and provides vocal arrangements. Some of the show's most memorable moments, like Stewie and Brian's road trip songs or Peter's various musical adventures, showcase MacFarlane's genuine musical abilities rather than just comedy writing. The voice recording process for Family Guy involves some truly unique techniques that create the show's distinctive sound. Unlike many animated series where actors record their lines separately, Family Guy often brings the core cast together for group recording sessions. This allows for more natural interactions and improvised moments between characters. Seth Green, who voices Chris Griffin, frequently ad-libs during these sessions, leading to some of the characters' most endearing moments. The chemistry between voice actors during these collaborative recording sessions contributes significantly to the family dynamic that makes the show feel authentic despite its outrageous scenarios. Family Guy's international variations reveal fascinating cultural adaptations that most American viewers never see. Different countries have created their own localized versions of certain episodes, replacing American pop culture references with local celebrities and cultural touchstones. The show airs in over 50 countries, and each region has unique censorship requirements that lead to different editing approaches. Some countries focus heavily on removing violence while allowing sexual content, while others take the opposite approach. These international versions sometimes create entirely different comedic rhythms and viewing experiences. The show's relationship with guest stars has produced some incredible behind-the-scenes stories. Many celebrities who appear on Family Guy are longtime fans who specifically request to be part of episodes. Conway Twitty, whose music videos frequently interrupt episodes as random cutaway gags, became a running joke specifically because McFarlane and the writers found his earnest country music performances hilariously incongruous with the show's irreverent tone. Some guest stars have recorded multiple episodes worth of material during single recording sessions, allowing the show to feature their characters across multiple seasons. Family Guy's approach to controversial topics has created a unique position in television comedy. The show operates under what writers call the equal opportunity offense philosophy, meaning that no topic, group, or individual is considered off-limits for comedic treatment. This approach has generated both criticism and praise from various quarters, but it has also allowed the show to address social issues in ways that more conventional programming cannot. Episodes dealing with topics like religion, politics, and social justice often use humor as a vehicle for presenting multiple perspectives on complex issues. The technical aspects of Family Guy's production reveal impressive attention to detail that viewers might not notice. The show's color palette has evolved significantly over its run, with newer episodes featuring more sophisticated lighting and shading techniques. Background artists create incredibly detailed environments that often include visual jokes and Easter eggs that reward careful viewers. The Drunken Clam, the Griffin House, and other recurring locations contain hundreds of small details that remain consistent across episodes, creating a lived-in feel that supports the show's fictional world. Family Guy's impact on other animated series cannot be overstated. The show's success paved the way for adult-oriented animated comedies like American Dad, The Cleveland Show, and Rick and Morty. Its influence on writing style, particularly the use of non-sequitur cutaway gags and pop culture references, has become a standard template for animated comedy. Many current animated series creators cite Family Guy as a direct influence on their own work, demonstrating its lasting impact on the medium. The show's merchandise empire extends into surprisingly diverse areas. Beyond typical television show merchandise like t-shirts and toys, Family Guy has inspired everything from mobile apps to theme park attractions. The show's characters appear on products ranging from breakfast cereals to automobile accessories. This merchandising success has contributed significantly to the show's financial viability and cultural presence, making Family Guy characters recognizable, even to people who don't regularly watch the series. Family Guy's writing team includes some of television's most talented comedy writers, many of whom have gone on to create their own successful series. The show serves as a training ground for comedy writers, providing them with experience in rapid-fire joke writing, character development, and serialized storytelling. Alumni of the Family Guy writing staff have contributed to shows like The Simpsons, South Park, and Saturday Night Live, spreading the show's comedic influence throughout the industry. The show's approach to character development over multiple seasons reveals sophisticated long-term storytelling strategies. While Family Guy is known for its episodic nature and reset-button storytelling, careful viewers can trace character evolution across seasons. Stewie's gradual shift from world domination fantasies to more nuanced character interactions, Brian's ongoing struggles with alcoholism and romantic relationships, and Peter's various career changes all represent subtle character development that occurs alongside the show's more obvious comedic elements. Family Guy's relationship with current events and topical humor requires incredibly fast production turnarounds that most viewers don't appreciate. The show's writers and animators often work under extreme time pressure to incorporate recent news events and pop culture phenomena into episodes. This rapid response capability has allowed Family Guy to remain culturally relevant across multiple decades, but it also creates significant production challenges that require careful coordination between writing, animation, and broadcast scheduling. The show's musical parodies and elaborate musical sequences often involve complex licensing negotiations and legal considerations. When Family Guy parodies specific songs or musical styles, the production team must navigate copyright laws while creating content that's clearly transformative enough to qualify for fair use protection. Some of the show's most memorable musical moments required months of legal work behind the scenes, demonstrating the complexity involved in creating seemingly simple comedic content. Family Guy's impact on voice acting as a profession has been substantial and lasting. The show's success has elevated voice acting from a relatively niche specialty to a more mainstream entertainment career path. Seth MacFarlane's multiple voice roles have inspired other actors to develop versatile vocal capabilities, and the show's ensemble cast approach has become a model for other animated series. Voice acting workshops and training programs now regularly reference Family Guy techniques and approaches. The show's digital presence and streaming availability have introduced Family Guy to entirely new generations of viewers who experience the series differently than original broadcast audiences. Binge-watching capabilities allow viewers to notice long-term character arcs and recurring jokes that might be missed during weekly viewing. Streaming platforms have also made international versions and extended cuts available to broader audiences, creating new ways to experience familiar content. Family Guy's influence on comedy writing extends beyond animation into live-action television and film. The show's rapid-fire reference style and willingness to break the fourth wall have influenced writers across multiple mediums. Comedy Central roasts, Saturday Night Live sketches, and even stand-up comedy routines now regularly employ techniques that were pioneered or popularized by Family Guy writers. The show's approach to holiday episodes and special events demonstrates sophisticated audience engagement strategies. Family Guy's Christmas, Halloween, and other holiday episodes often feature elaborate production values and guest stars, creating appointment television that generates significant viewer loyalty. These special episodes frequently become fan favorites that get rewatched annually, contributing to the show's lasting cultural presence. As we reach the end of our journey through these fascinating Family Guy facts, it's clear that this seemingly simple animated series contains layers of complexity, creativity, and cultural influence that most viewers never fully appreciate. From Seth MacFarlane's one-man vocal circus to the show's groundbreaking approach to adult animation, Family Guy has carved out a unique space in television history that continues to evolve and surprise audiences. Whether you're a longtime fan or someone just discovering the series, these behind-the-scenes insights reveal the incredible amount of talent, dedication, and creative risk-taking that goes into every episode. The show's ability to remain relevant and controversial after more than 2 decades speaks to its creators' understanding of comedy, culture, and the ever-changing landscape of entertainment. So the next time you're settling in for a Family Guy marathon, remember that you're not just watching a cartoon about a dysfunctional family in Rhode Island. You're experiencing the result of thousands of hours of creative work by some of the most talented people in entertainment, all coming together to create something that's simultaneously ridiculous and profound, offensive and heartwarming, simple and incredibly sophisticated. Sweet dreams. And remember, somewhere out there, Seth MacFarlane is probably already working on the next episode that will surprise, delight, and possibly outrage audiences all over again. That's the magic of Family Guy. And that's what makes it truly special in the vast landscape of television entertainment. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let me take you on a gentle journey through the surprisingly deep world of Family Guy. Tonight, we're going to explore the hidden layers, the forgotten stories, and the intricate details that make up one of television's most enduring animated series. This isn't your typical Family Guy experience filled with cutaway gags and rapid-fire jokes. Instead, we're diving into the quieter side of Quahog, where stories unfold slowly and mysteries reveal themselves like pages in a well-worn book. Picture yourself settling into the most comfortable spot in your home, perhaps the same way Peter Griffin settles into his beloved chair at the Drunken Clam. The familiar weight of routine, the comfort of knowing exactly where everything belongs, and the gentle rhythm of a world that somehow makes sense despite all its chaos. That's where we're going tonight, into the heart of what makes Family Guy more than just a comedy show. Let's begin our journey in the early days, back when Family Guy was just a spark of an idea in Seth MacFarlane's imagination. The year was 1995, and MacFarlane was a young animator fresh out of the Rhode Island School of Design. He created a short film called The Life of Larry, featuring a character who would eventually become Peter Griffin. But Larry was different from Peter in subtle ways that tell us something important about how stories evolve and grow over time. In those earliest concepts, the family dynamics were softer, more grounded in reality. The humor came from observation rather than spectacle. MacFarlane was drawing from his own experiences growing up in Connecticut, watching how families really interacted when no one was performing for an audience. The quiet moments between the big events, the small conversations that happen in kitchens and living rooms when the day is winding down. The Griffin house itself tells a story that many people overlook. Located at 31 Spooner Street in Quahog, Rhode Island, this fictional address represents something deeper than just a setting for comedy. The house is modest, middle class, lived in. The wallpaper is slightly dated. The furniture shows signs of daily use, and there's always something slightly askew that suggests real people live here, not television characters. If you've ever noticed the way light filters through the Griffin living room windows during different episodes, you'll see that the animators pay careful attention to time of day and season. Morning light has a different quality than evening light, and winter episodes show the subtle blue-gray tones that anyone who's lived in New England recognizes immediately. These details create a sense of place that goes beyond the jokes, grounding the fantastic elements in something real and familiar. Peter Griffin himself is often dismissed as simply a loud, obnoxious character designed for easy laughs. But when you look closer, when you pay attention to the quieter moments, you see something more complex. Peter represents the struggle of many middle-aged men who feel caught between the expectations of adulthood and the desire to remain young at heart. His job at the brewery, his friendship with his co-workers, his genuine love for his family despite his obvious flaws. These elements create a character who is both ridiculous and surprisingly human. Consider Peter's relationship with his father-in-law, Francis Griffin. Their conflicts aren't just about comedy. They represent a clash between generations, between different ways of seeing the world. Francis, with his strict religious views and rigid moral code, represents an older America, while Peter embodies a more casual, irreverent approach to life. Their arguments, when you strip away the exaggerated elements, echo conversations happening in living rooms across the country. Lois Griffin, too, is more than she initially appears. Her background as a member of the wealthy Pewter-Schmidt family adds layers to her character that aren't always front and center. She chose to marry Peter, chose the middle-class life, chose to prioritize family over the privilege she grew up with. This choice reverberates through many episodes in subtle ways, informing her reactions to situations and her approach to problems. The way Lois handles the chaos that constantly surrounds her family reveals a kind of quiet strength. She's the anchor that keeps the Griffin household from completely spinning out of control. Watch her in the background of scenes sometime, and you'll notice how she's always doing something. Cleaning up a mess, preparing a meal, mediating a conflict. She's the invisible infrastructure that makes the visible comedy possible. Brian Griffin presents perhaps the most interesting character study in the entire series. An anthropomorphic dog who writes novels, drinks martinis, and engages in philosophical discussions, Brian serves as both the family's voice of reason and its most pretentious member. But his character represents something deeper about the struggle between artistic ambition and practical reality. Brian's novels never get published. His political activism rarely accomplishes anything concrete, and his romantic relationships consistently fail. Yet he continues trying, continues believing that his next project will be the one that breaks through. This persistence in the face of repeated failure makes him oddly admirable, even when his intellectual posturing becomes insufferable. He represents the part of all of us that refuses to give up on our dreams, even when evidence suggests we probably should. The relationship between Brian and Stewie has evolved over the years into something genuinely touching. What started as a simple premise, a sophisticated baby and an intellectual dog, has become a friendship between two characters who recognize something of themselves in each other. They're both outsiders in their own family, both struggling with identity and purpose, both searching for meaning in a world that often seems meaningless. Stewie Griffin, the evil genius baby, carries perhaps the heaviest burden of any character in the show. His advanced intelligence, trapped in an infant's body, creates a kind of existential prison. He understands the world around him better than most adults, but he's powerless to change his circumstances. This fundamental frustration drives much of his behavior, from his elaborate schemes to his constant threats of matricide. But Stewie's character has softened over the years, revealing vulnerability beneath the villainy. His relationship with his mother has evolved from antagonistic to genuinely affectionate. His sexuality, hinted at but never explicitly confirmed, adds another layer of complexity to a character who already struggles with identity and belonging. Stewie represents the pain of being misunderstood, of having thoughts and feelings that the world isn't ready to accept. Meg Griffin occupies a unique position in the Family Guy universe as the perpetual outsider. While the treatment she receives from her family is often cruel beyond what real families would tolerate, her character represents something painfully real about adolescence. The feeling of being invisible, unwanted, fundamentally flawed in ways that everyone else can see, but you can't fix. The running joke of everyone hating Meg becomes less funny when you consider what it might feel like to be her. High school is difficult enough without your own family treating you as an embarrassment. Yet Meg persists, continues hoping for acceptance, continues trying to find her place in the world. Her resilience, rarely acknowledged within the show itself, is actually quite remarkable. Chris Griffin, the gentle giant of the family, provides a different perspective on teenage life. While Meg struggles with social rejection, Chris seems largely oblivious to social hierarchies. His innocence, while sometimes played for laughs, also serves as a reminder of what we lose as we grow older and become more aware of how cruel the world can be. The supporting characters of Quahog create a rich tapestry of small-town life. Glenn Quagmire, the sex-obsessed neighbor, represents unchecked desire and the consequences of living without moral boundaries. Cleveland Brown, before his move to Virginia, served as Peter's most loyal friend, the voice of reason who was usually ignored but never gave up trying to help. Joe Swanson, the wheelchair-bound police officer, demonstrates how disability doesn't define a person's worth or capabilities. His enthusiasm for life, his dedication to his job, and his fierce competitiveness in sports show a character who refuses to be limited by his circumstances. Joe's presence in the show normalizes disability in a way that's both respectful and matter-of-fact. The Drunken Clam, Quahog's local bar, serves as more than just a setting for Peter's adventures. It represents a particular kind of American institution, the neighborhood bar where working-class men gather to escape the pressures of daily life. The conversations that happen there, while often ridiculous, echo real discussions about work, family, politics, and dreams deferred. Jerome, the bartender, observes it all with the wisdom that comes from listening to people's problems night after night. He rarely offers advice, but his presence provides stability in a place where emotions run high and judgment is temporarily suspended. The Drunken Clam is a sanctuary where the ordinary rules of polite society don't apply, where men can be honest about their fears and failures without losing face. The Pawtucket Brewery, where Peter works, represents the changing nature of American manufacturing. It's not the steel mill or automotive plant that previous generations might have worked in, but it still provides the steady employment that allows families like the Griffins to maintain their middle-class lifestyle. The brewery's various corporate changes throughout the series reflect the instability that many American workers have experienced in recent decades. Peter's co-workers, Opie, Joe, and Quagmire during his brief stint there, create a workplace dynamic that many viewers recognize from their own jobs. The casual conversations, the small rebellions against management, the friendships formed over shared frustrations, these elements ground the show's more fantastical elements in workplace reality that feels authentic. Quahog itself, while fictional, captures the essence of small New England towns. The layout includes all the necessary elements: a downtown area with small businesses, residential neighborhoods with tree-lined streets, and enough local institutions to support community life. The recurring locations like the grocery store, the post office, and various restaurants create a sense of place that makes Quahog feel real, despite the surreal events that occur there. The weather in Quahog follows New England patterns: snowy winters, mild springs, hot summers, and colorful autumns. These seasonal changes affect the characters' daily lives in subtle ways. Winter episodes often show characters bundled in coats and dealing with snow, while summer episodes feature barbecues and outdoor activities. These details create continuity and realism that supports the show's more outrageous elements. Family Guy's approach to time is interesting and worth considering as we wind down our journey tonight. Unlike shows with strict continuity, Family Guy exists in a kind of floating timeline where characters don't age and consequences rarely carry over from episode to episode. This allows for maximum creative freedom, but also creates a sense of eternal present that can be oddly comforting. The Griffin family remains frozen at particular life stages. Meg will always be the awkward teenager. Chris will always be the sweet-natured high schooler. Stewie will always be the brilliant baby. This stability provides viewers with the comfort of knowing that no matter how chaotic individual episodes become, the fundamental relationships will remain constant. The cutaway gags that Family Guy is famous for serve a function beyond simple comedy. They represent the way human minds actually work, constantly making connections, remembering random events, getting distracted by tangential thoughts. While these segments are often criticized for disrupting narrative flow, they actually mirror the way we experience consciousness, jumping from thought to thought in patterns that don't always make logical sense, but feel natural to us. The show's references to popular culture create a shared language between the creators and viewers. When Family Guy references a movie, television show, or historical event, it assumes a level of cultural literacy that creates intimacy between the show and its audience. These references also serve as time capsules, preserving moments from specific eras in American culture. The music in Family Guy deserves special attention as we prepare for sleep. The show's original compositions, from Stewie's elaborate musical numbers to the simple melodies that accompany quiet moments, demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how music affects emotion. The orchestral score swells during dramatic moments, softens during tender scenes, and provides rhythmic support for comedy sequences. Seth MacFarlane's own musical background influences the show's approach to song and dance. The elaborate production numbers scattered throughout the series showcase not just comedic timing, but genuine musical theater skills. These moments provide emotional release and allow characters to express feelings that might be difficult to convey through dialogue alone. The animation style of Family Guy has evolved over the years while maintaining its essential character. The simple, clean lines and bright colors create a visual language that's both accessible and distinctive. The character designs, while seemingly basic, actually demonstrate careful attention to body language and facial expression that communicates emotion effectively. The way characters move through space in Family Guy reflects their personalities. Peter's movements are often clumsy and enthusiastic, reflecting his impulsive nature. Lois moves with purpose and grace, suggesting her competence and self-control. Brian's movements are more human-like than dog-like, reinforcing his role as the family's intellectual. Stewie's movements combine baby-like physicality with adult-like precision, highlighting his unique position between childhood and sophistication. The Griffin family home changes subtly throughout the series, with rooms occasionally rearranged and new details added. These changes suggest the natural evolution of a lived-in space. Furniture gets replaced, decorations change with the seasons, and wear patterns develop in places where characters spend the most time. These details create the impression of a real home where real people have made real memories. As we near the end of our journey through Family Guy lore, it's worth considering what the show reveals about American family life in the early 21st century. The Griffins face many of the same challenges as real families: financial pressures, generational conflicts, changing social norms, and the difficulty of maintaining connections in an increasingly fragmented world. The show's longevity suggests that it touches something universal about family dynamics. Despite the exaggerated circumstances and impossible situations, the core relationships ring true. Parents worry about their children, siblings compete for attention, spouses negotiate the balance between individual desires and family responsibilities, and everyone struggles with the gap between who they want to be and who they actually are. The recurring themes of acceptance and belonging run throughout Family Guy's episodes. Characters search for their place in the world, sometimes finding it in unexpected places or through unlikely relationships. The show suggests that family isn't just about blood relations, but about choosing to care for each other despite obvious flaws and frequent disappointments. The community of Quahog, with all its eccentric residents and improbable situations, represents an idealized version of small-town life where everyone knows everyone else and shared experiences create bonds that survive even the most ridiculous conflicts. It's a place where consequences can be reset with each new episode, where mistakes can be forgiven, and where tomorrow always offers a fresh start. As you drift toward sleep, think about the gentle rhythms of daily life in Quahog, the morning routine of getting the family ready for school and work, the comfortable predictability of Peter's job at the brewery, the evening gatherings at the Drunken Clam where friends share their thoughts and frustrations. These ordinary moments, scattered between the extraordinary adventures, create the foundation that makes everything else possible. The love that binds the Griffin family together isn't always obvious, often buried beneath layers of sarcasm, conflict, and mutual frustration. But it's there in the small gestures: Lois making Peter's favorite meal after a difficult day, Brian staying up late to help Stewie with a project, Meg defending her family despite their treatment of her, Chris offering innocent observations that accidentally provide exactly the wisdom someone needed to hear. Let the warm familiarity of the Griffin household surround you now. Picture the soft glow of the television in their living room, the comfortable wear patterns on their favorite chairs, the family photos scattered throughout the house that document years of shared experiences. Feel the sense of belonging that comes from being part of something larger than yourself, even when that something is imperfect and often chaotic. The stories we've explored tonight reveal Family Guy as more than simple entertainment. It's a meditation on what it means to be human in contemporary America, an exploration of how families function when stripped of pretense, and a reminder that love persists even in the most unlikely circumstances. The show's ability to find humor in everyday frustrations while maintaining genuine affection for its characters creates a unique space in popular culture where viewers can laugh at themselves while feeling understood. As sleep approaches, let yourself settle into the rhythms we've discovered together: the predictable chaos of the Griffin household, the reliable friendship of the Drunken Clam regulars, the seasonal changes that mark time's passage in Quahog. These elements create a world that's both fantastical and familiar, where anything can happen but fundamental truths about human nature remain constant. Rest now in the knowledge that somewhere in the animated landscape of television, the Griffin family continues their daily routines. Peter will wake up tomorrow ready for another adventure. Lois will organize whatever chaos emerges. Brian will pursue his literary ambitions with renewed optimism. Stewie will scheme and dream in equal measure. Meg will hope for acceptance while finding strength in solitude, and Chris will greet each new day with innocent enthusiasm. The gentle humor and unexpected wisdom we've uncovered tonight will remain with you, providing comfort and perspective as you navigate your own daily adventures. The world of Family Guy, with all its absurdity and heart, reminds us that families are imperfect, life is unpredictable, and laughter really can be the best medicine for whatever challenges we face. Sweet dreams, and may your rest be as peaceful as a quiet evening in Quahog, where the street lights cast gentle shadows on familiar sidewalks and the promise of tomorrow's adventures waits patiently for morning to arrive. Did you know that Family Guy has been secretly building one of the most complex and disturbing universes in television history? Tonight, we're diving deep into the hidden lore that connects every bizarre moment, every throwaway joke, and every seemingly random cutaway into something far more sinister than you ever imagined. Get comfortable, because what you're about to discover about the Griffin family and their world will completely change how you see this animated sitcom forever. Welcome to a journey through the darkest corners of Quahog, where nothing is quite what it seems, and every laugh might be masking something truly terrifying. I'm going to take you through the most mind-bending theories, hidden connections, and disturbing implications that have been hiding in plain sight for over 2 decades. This isn't just about cartoon humor anymore. This is about a carefully constructed reality where time itself breaks down, where characters live and die and return without explanation, and where the very fabric of existence seems to bend to the whims of a family that might not even be human. Let's start with something that's been bothering fans for years. Have you ever noticed how characters in Family Guy seem to exist in multiple states of reality simultaneously? Peter Griffin has died countless times throughout the series, yet he continues to appear in subsequent episodes with no explanation. This isn't just cartoon logic at work. There's something much deeper happening here, something that suggests the Griffin family exists outside the normal rules of life and death. Consider this carefully. In one episode, Peter is literally crushed by a falling piano. In another, he's shot point blank in the chest. He's been decapitated, blown up, and killed in ways too numerous to count. Yet he always returns, usually within the same episode, sometimes carrying the memory of his death, sometimes acting as if nothing happened at all. This pattern extends to every member of the family, creating what theorists call the resurrection phenomenon. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. The show has established that Peter remembers some of his deaths, but not others. In certain episodes, he makes direct references to previous fatal incidents, treating them as if they were merely inconvenient experiences rather than life-ending events. This suggests that the Griffin family exists in a state of quantum immortality, where their consciousness simply shifts to alternate timelines whenever they die in one reality. The implications of this are staggering. If the Griffins can't truly die, what does that make them? Are they some kind of interdimensional beings? Are they trapped in an endless cycle of death and rebirth? Or are they perhaps already dead, existing in some kind of purgatorial state where their worst impulses are allowed to manifest without permanent consequences? This theory gains even more weight when you examine the nature of their world. Quahog, Rhode Island, isn't just an ordinary small town. It's a place where the laws of physics bend and break on a daily basis. Characters regularly fall from impossible heights without injury, survive explosions that should level city blocks, and experience transformations that defy biological possibility. The town itself seems to reshape itself to accommodate whatever narrative demands the moment requires. Look at the Clam, the local bar where Peter spends most of his time. The interior layout changes from episode to episode, sometimes dramatically. Rooms appear and disappear, the building size fluctuates wildly, and the bar somehow manages to accommodate everything from small, intimate gatherings to massive concerts and events. This isn't just inconsistent animation. It's evidence that reality itself is malleable in Quahog. The same phenomenon affects the Griffin house. Rooms appear when needed and vanish when not required. The basement sometimes contains a simple laundry area. Other times it's a vast underground complex with multiple levels and impossible architecture. The house has been destroyed and rebuilt so many times that it's essentially become a ship of Theseus' paradox. At what point did the original Griffin home cease to exist and become something else entirely? But the most disturbing aspect of Family Guy lore involves the nature of time itself in this universe. The show has been running for over 20 years, yet the characters haven't aged. Stewie remains a baby, Meg is still a teenager, and Chris continues through high school perpetually. This isn't just a cartoon convention. The show has explicitly addressed the passage of time on multiple occasions, creating paradoxes that suggest something is fundamentally wrong with how time functions in their reality. Consider Stewie's advanced intelligence and technological capabilities. This isn't just a genius baby. Stewie has access to time travel technology, advanced weaponry, and scientific knowledge that surpasses anything available in our reality. He's built nuclear weapons in his bedroom, created sentient robots, and developed interdimensional travel devices. These aren't the inventions of a human child, no matter how intelligent. They're the creations of something far beyond human understanding. The time travel episodes reveal even more disturbing implications. When Stewie and Brian travel through time, they encounter multiple versions of themselves and their family members. Some of these versions are dramatically different, suggesting that the timeline they inhabit is just one of countless variations. In some timelines, the family members have different personalities, different relationships, and different fates. This raises the question of whether the Griffins we follow are even the original versions of these characters, or just one set among infinite possibilities. Brian's character provides another piece of this cosmic puzzle. He's a dog who walks upright, drives cars, drinks alcohol, and engages in complex philosophical discussions. The show treats this as perfectly normal, but the implications are horrifying when you consider the biological impossibility of his existence. Brian isn't just an anthropomorphic cartoon character. He's an aberration, a violation of natural law that somehow exists within this distorted reality. Brian's atheism becomes particularly significant in this context. He's the only character who consistently questions the nature of existence and reality. His philosophical discussions with Stewie often touch on themes of mortality, consciousness, and the meaning of existence. It's as if Brian is the only character who recognizes that their reality is fundamentally wrong, yet he's trapped within it just like everyone else. The show's treatment of religion and spirituality adds another layer to this mystery. Characters regularly encounter divine beings, travel to heaven and hell, and interact with supernatural forces. These aren't metaphorical episodes or dreams. They're presented as literal experiences within the show's canon. Death himself is a recurring character, depicted as a fallible being who can be tricked, bargained with, or even temporarily replaced. This suggests that the afterlife in the Family Guy universe is just as chaotic and rule-bending as the mortal realm. Peter's encounters with God reveal perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this reality. God is portrayed as incompetent, petty, and frequently absent from his duties. He makes mistakes, gets involved in trivial disputes, and seems to have lost control of his own creation. If God himself is fallible and chaotic in this universe, it explains why reality operates with such inconsistent and disturbing rules. The chicken fights represent another crucial element in understanding the true nature of this reality. Peter's battles with Ernie the giant chicken aren't just random comedy sequences. They're reality-breaking events that cause massive destruction across Quahog, yet somehow never result in permanent consequences. Buildings are destroyed, innocent people are presumably killed, and the entire infrastructure of the town is regularly devastated. Yet everything returns to normal by the next episode, as if these catastrophic events never happened. This suggests that Quahog exists in a state of constant reset, where major traumatic events are simply erased from collective memory. The townspeople continue their lives as if nothing happened, which implies either mass amnesia or the existence of multiple parallel realities that overlap and replace each other. The chicken fights might actually be tears in the fabric of reality itself, moments when the artificial nature of their world becomes visible through the chaos. The cutaway gags provide even more evidence of reality distortion. When Peter begins a story with his characteristic phrase about a time that's worse than something else, the narrative literally shifts to a completely different reality. These aren't just flashbacks or memories. They're alternate dimensions where different rules apply and different versions of history have played out. The fact that Peter can access these realities at will suggests he has some level of interdimensional awareness or control. Some of these cutaway realities are obviously fictional, referencing movies, television shows, or historical events. But others seem to be genuine alternate versions of the Family Guy universe where small changes have created dramatically different outcomes. This creates a multiverse structure where Peter's consciousness can jump between realities, experiencing different versions of events and bringing that knowledge back to his primary timeline. Meg's role in this cosmic horror becomes clearer when you examine how other characters treat her. The family's abuse of Meg isn't just mean-spirited humor. It's ritualistic and consistent across all timelines and realities. Even in alternate universes where other aspects of their lives are different, the treatment of Meg remains constant. This suggests she serves some kind of specific function in maintaining the stability of their reality. Some theories propose that Meg is actually the anchor point that keeps their chaotic universe from completely falling apart. Her suffering might be the price paid for the family's immortality and reality-bending abilities. The more they abuse her, the more stable their impossible existence becomes. This would explain why even when Meg tries to improve her situation or gain acceptance, the universe seems to conspire against her, forcing her back into her role as the family scapegoat. Lois presents her own mysteries. Despite being married to Peter and living in the same chaotic reality, she often displays knowledge and abilities that seem beyond her apparent character. She's multilingual, has extensive combat training, has connections to wealthy and powerful families, and occasionally demonstrates skills that suggest a much more complex background than her suburban housewife persona would indicate. Her maiden name is Pewterschmidt, connecting her to a family of extreme wealth and influence. But the show has revealed that the Pewterschmidt fortune comes from sources that are never fully explained. They have connections to Nazi Germany, mysterious business dealings, and enough power to manipulate major political and economic events. This isn't just old money. This is money that comes from sources that operate outside normal human society. Lois's piano playing takes on new significance in this context. Music has always been associated with supernatural and reality-altering powers in mythology and fiction. When Lois plays piano, she often enters a trance-like state where she becomes completely absorbed in the music. Could her playing be some kind of ritual that helps maintain the stability of their distorted reality? Is she unconsciously channeling forces that keep their impossible world functioning? The town of Quahog itself contains numerous locations that defy logical explanation. The Drunken Clam Bar exists in a constant state of flux. Tom Tucker's news station somehow manages to cover every bizarre event that happens in town, no matter how impossible or reality-breaking it might be. The grocery store, the movie theater, and other local businesses seem to have unlimited resources and the ability to accommodate whatever the plot requires. But perhaps most disturbing is Quahog's relationship with the outside world. Characters regularly travel to other cities and countries, yet these locations often seem just as distorted and rule-breaking as Quahog itself. When the family goes to Europe, they encounter the same kind of impossible situations and reality-bending events they experience at home. This suggests that the distortion isn't limited to their hometown, but extends throughout their entire universe. Cleveland's move to Virginia and subsequent return provides another clue to the nature of their reality. During his absence, Cleveland had his own show in a different location with different characters and storylines. Yet when he returned to Quahog, he seamlessly reintegrated into the Family Guy universe as if nothing had changed. This suggests that characters can literally move between different fictional realities while maintaining their essential identities. The evil monkey in Chris's closet represents one of the most obvious supernatural elements that the family accepts without question. This isn't just a monkey that happens to live in their house. It's a malevolent entity that exists partially outside normal reality, able to appear and disappear at will, and possessing knowledge and abilities that suggest it's not bound by the same rules as other characters. When the evil monkey's backstory was finally revealed, it showed a complex history involving betrayal, revenge, and supernatural justice. But the fact that Chris lived with this entity for years without the family taking serious action suggests they're either unable to perceive the true nature of supernatural threats, or they're so accustomed to reality-bending phenomena that they've become desensitized to genuine danger. The show's treatment of violence provides another disturbing window into the nature of their reality. Characters regularly engage in brutal combat, use deadly weapons, and inflict injuries that should result in permanent disability or death. Yet these violent encounters rarely have lasting consequences. Bodies heal impossibly quickly, psychological trauma is ignored, and characters continue their relationships as if attempted murder was just a minor disagreement. This isn't just cartoon violence logic. The show has established that pain and injury do matter in their world. Characters react to pain, seek medical treatment, and sometimes suffer long-term consequences from their actions. But the threshold for what constitutes permanent harm seems to be much higher than in normal reality, suggesting that their physical forms are more resilient or fundamentally different from normal human bodies. The celebrity appearances in Family Guy create another layer of reality confusion. When real celebrities appear on the show, they're often portrayed in ways that are completely at odds with their real-world personas. Some are depicted as evil, others as incompetent, and many are shown in situations that would be impossible in reality. These aren't just parodies or satirical representations. They're presented as literal encounters within the show's universe. This raises questions about the relationship between the Family Guy universe and our reality. Are these actual alternate versions of real people, or are they fictional constructs created by whatever force maintains their distorted world? The fact that these celebrity characters often have knowledge of events from the real world suggests some kind of connection to our reality, but their behavior and circumstances are so different that they can't be the same individuals. Adam West's portrayal as the mayor of Quahog provides the most extensive example of this phenomenon. The real Adam West was involved with the show for many years before his death, playing a version of himself that bore little resemblance to his actual personality. This fictional Adam West had supernatural experiences, engaged in bizarre political policies, and interacted with the Griffin family as if they were real people in his world. The fact that the real Adam West participated in creating this alternate version of himself suggests a blurring of the lines between fiction and reality that extends beyond the show's universe. It's as if the Family Guy reality has the ability to reach into our world and influence real people to participate in its narrative structure. The show's handling of historical events reveals another disturbing aspect of their reality. Characters regularly travel back in time to witness or participate in major historical moments, but their presence often changes the outcome of these events in ways that should have massive consequences for their present-day reality. Yet somehow the timeline always corrects itself, or the changes are ignored in subsequent episodes. This suggests that history itself is malleable in their universe, subject to constant revision and correction by forces that operate outside normal temporal mechanics. The Griffin family's ability to witness and alter historical events without permanent consequences implies they exist outside the normal flow of cause and effect. Stewie's sexual orientation and romantic relationships add another layer of complexity to the reality distortion. The show has never definitively established Stewie's sexuality, leaving it deliberately ambiguous despite numerous hints and references. This isn't just uncertainty about a character's personal life. It's as if Stewie exists in a state of quantum sexuality, where all possibilities remain open simultaneously. When Stewie does engage in romantic or sexual situations, They often involve time travel, alternate realities, or impossible circumstances. His relationship with himself from alternate timelines, his interactions with future versions of other characters, and his romantic encounters with beings from different realities all suggest that normal human relationship dynamics don't apply to him. Brian's romantic relationships follow similar patterns of reality distortion. He's been involved with human women, other dogs, and beings from alternate realities. These relationships are treated as normal within the show's universe, but they represent violations of biological and social norms that should be impossible in any consistent reality. The recurring theme of characters breaking the fourth wall provides perhaps the most direct evidence that they're aware of their fictional nature. When characters make references to the show itself, acknowledge the presence of cameras, or directly address the audience, they're demonstrating consciousness of their status as fictional constructs. Yet they continue to behave as if their reality is genuine and consequential. This creates a paradox where characters are simultaneously aware of their fictional nature and committed to maintaining the illusion of their reality. It's as if they're trapped in a performance they can't escape, forced to continue their roles even though they understand the artificial nature of their existence. The show's treatment of mental illness and psychological trauma becomes particularly disturbing when viewed through this lens. Characters regularly experience events that should result in severe psychological damage, yet they continue functioning as if nothing happened. Peter has been through countless traumatic experiences. Meg has suffered years of abuse and rejection, and Chris has dealt with supernatural threats and family dysfunction that should have lasting psychological effects. Their apparent immunity to psychological trauma suggests either that their minds operate differently from normal humans, or that the reality they inhabit somehow prevents the formation of lasting psychological damage. Either possibility raises questions about the fundamental nature of their consciousness and identity. The economic system of Quahog defies logical explanation. Peter works at a brewery, yet the family maintains a middle-class lifestyle that includes expensive vacations, constant dining out, and the ability to replace destroyed property without apparent financial strain. The cost of living in their reality seems to operate on completely different principles than any real economic system. Local businesses somehow manage to stay open despite constant destruction and the bizarre behavior of their customers. The bank continues to provide services, even though it's regularly robbed or destroyed. The hospital treats impossible injuries and supernatural conditions as routine medical cases. This suggests an economic system that operates independently of normal supply and demand principles. The show's treatment of technology reveals another aspect of their reality distortion. Characters have access to futuristic devices and impossible inventions, yet they also use outdated technology and live in what appears to be contemporary society. Time periods blend together in ways that suggest their reality exists outside normal temporal progression. Stewie's advanced technology coexists with Peter's primitive understanding of basic concepts. Lois uses modern communication devices while also displaying knowledge of historical events that she shouldn't have witnessed. This temporal confusion extends throughout their universe, creating a reality where past, present, and future exist simultaneously. The educational system in Quahog provides another window into the distorted nature of their reality. Chris and Meg attend high school, yet their education seems to consist primarily of bizarre adventures and encounters with supernatural phenomena. Their teachers are often incompetent or malevolent, and the curriculum appears to have no connection to real educational standards. Despite this chaotic educational environment, the characters somehow maintain enough knowledge to function in society. They can read, write, and perform basic mathematical calculations when the plot requires it, yet they also display shocking ignorance about fundamental concepts. This selective competence suggests that knowledge in their reality is distributed based on narrative necessity rather than logical learning processes. Religious and spiritual experiences in the Family Guy universe are treated as literal events rather than matters of faith or belief. Characters regularly encounter angels, demons, divine beings, and supernatural forces as physical presences in their world. These encounters often contradict established religious doctrines and present theological concepts in chaotic and illogical ways. The fact that multiple religious and spiritual systems seem to exist simultaneously in their reality suggests a universe where belief itself shapes existence. Different characters' spiritual experiences reflect their personal expectations rather than consistent universal truths, implying that reality adapts itself to accommodate conflicting belief systems. As we reach the end of this exploration into the hidden depths of Family Guy lore, the picture that emerges is far more complex and disturbing than the surface comedy would suggest. We're looking at a universe where the fundamental laws of reality are constantly in flux, where consciousness and identity operate on principles that defy normal understanding, and where the characters exist in a state of perpetual uncertainty about their own nature and existence. The Griffin family isn't just a dysfunctional cartoon family. They're entities, trapped in a reality that operates outside the normal rules of existence, forced to repeat patterns of behavior while occasionally glimpsing the artificial nature of their world. Their immortality comes at the cost of genuine growth and change. Their relationships are defined by roles they cannot escape, and their reality is maintained through forces they cannot understand or control. This hidden lore transforms Family Guy from a simple, animated comedy into something resembling cosmic horror, where the greatest terror isn't monsters or supernatural threats, but the gradual realization that existence itself might be fundamentally meaningless and arbitrary. The character's ability to laugh and find humor in their situation becomes an act of defiance against the absurdity of their existence, or perhaps the only coping mechanism available to consciousness trapped in an impossible reality. Sweet dreams, and remember that sometimes the most disturbing truths hide behind the most innocent laughter. Have you ever wondered if Stewie Griffin is actually a psychopath or just a misunderstood genius? What if I told you that the creators of Family Guy have hidden some of the most disturbing and fascinating secrets about this baby that would completely change how you see the show forever? Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the darkest corners of animated television. Today, we're uncovering the shocking lore behind one of animation's most controversial characters. From hidden meanings in his accent to disturbing implications about his sexuality and time travel adventures, we're about to explore Family Guy's secrets that even die-hard fans have missed. But before we start, make sure to hit that subscribe button because this rabbit hole goes deeper than you think, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's start with something that will blow your mind right away. Stewie's British accent isn't just a random character quirk. According to the show's creator, Seth MacFarlane, there's a deeply psychological reason behind it. The accent represents Stewie's desperate attempt to distance himself from his family and create a superior identity. It's actually a defense mechanism rooted in childhood trauma and feelings of abandonment. Think about it. Stewie is surrounded by what he perceives as intellectual inferiors. His father Peter is portrayed as bumbling and crude. His mother Lois often dismisses him, and his siblings fail to engage with his advanced intellect. The British accent becomes his way of elevating himself above what he sees as American mediocrity. It's not just pretentious, it's protective. But here's where it gets really interesting. Voice actor Seth MacFarlane has revealed in interviews that the accent was originally inspired by Rex Harrison's performance in My Fair Lady, specifically the character of Henry Higgins. Harrison's character was known for being intellectually arrogant and emotionally distant from others. Sound familiar? This connection runs deeper than you might think. Henry Higgins was a character who viewed himself as superior to everyone around him, particularly women, and had difficulty forming genuine emotional connections. These are exact parallels to Stewie's character development throughout the series. The accent isn't just mimicry, it's psychological modeling. Moving into even more disturbing territory, let's talk about Stewie's relationship with violence and murder. In early seasons, Stewie's homicidal tendencies weren't played entirely for laughs. The writers included subtle hints that his violent thoughts stem from genuine psychological disturbance rather than typical childhood acting out. Consider his detailed knowledge of weapons, torture techniques, and murder methods. This isn't information a normal 1-year-old would possess, even in an animated universe. The show's writers have suggested that Stewie's intelligence comes with a dark side, an inability to process normal, emotional responses to conflict. There's a particularly chilling episode where Stewie creates a simulation of killing Lois, and his satisfaction with the violence goes beyond typical cartoon comedy. The writers included psychological details that suggest Stewie experiences genuine pleasure from imagining harm to others. This crosses the line from innocent childhood fantasy into something much more concerning. What makes this even more unsettling is how other characters react to Stewie's violent statements. Most of the time, they can't understand him or they dismiss his comments as baby babbling. But the few characters who do understand him, like Brian, often seem genuinely disturbed by what Stewie says. This suggests that even within the show's universe, Stewie's thoughts are recognized as abnormal. Now let's dive into one of the most controversial aspects of Stewie's character development. His sexuality has been a source of debate and speculation since the show began. But there are hidden clues that reveal the writer's true intentions. Seth MacFarlane has made several statements over the years suggesting that Stewie is gay. But the way this has been handled in the show reveals some problematic undertones. Rather than presenting his sexuality as a natural part of his character development, it's often used as shock value or comedic relief. There's an uncomfortable pattern in how the show handles Stewie's potential relationships with male characters. His interactions with other boys his age, his fascination with certain male celebrities, and his reactions to romantic situations all contain coded language that adult viewers recognize but children watching wouldn't understand. The most disturbing aspect is how the show uses Stewie's age to make jokes about adult themes. Because he's technically a baby, the writers can include sexual innuendo and mature content that would be completely inappropriate if he were portrayed as his actual age emotionally and mentally. This creates a strange cognitive dissonance for viewers. We're supposed to accept Stewie as intellectually mature enough to understand complex concepts, build advanced technology, and engage in philosophical discussions. But then the show treats his sexuality as a punchline specifically because of his physical age. The time travel elements of Stewie's character open up another disturbing can of worms. Throughout the series, Stewie has demonstrated the ability to travel through time and alternate dimensions. But if you pay close attention to these episodes, there are implications that Stewie has been manipulating events in ways that benefit him psychologically. Consider the episode where Stewie and Brian travel to different time periods. Stewie shows remarkably little concern for the consequences of changing historical events. He's willing to potentially erase people from existence or alter major world events just to satisfy his curiosity or desires. This reveals a fundamental lack of empathy that goes beyond typical childhood selfishness. Stewie understands that his actions can cause suffering to others, but he simply doesn't care. He views other people, even those he claims to love, as expendable if they interfere with his goals. There's also the disturbing implication that Stewie may have used time travel to manipulate his own family relationships. Several episodes hint that he's been to the future and knows how certain events will play out. Yet he allows traumatic things to happen to his family members because it serves his purposes. The relationship between Stewie and Brian deserves special attention because it reveals some of the darkest aspects of Stewie's psychology. On the surface, their friendship appears to be the one genuine emotional connection Stewie has made. But when you examine their interactions closely, a more troubling pattern emerges. Stewie often treats Brian more like a pet than a friend, despite Brian's obvious intelligence and emotional needs. He manipulates Brian's insecurities about his writing career, his drinking problem, and his romantic failures. Stewie provides just enough support to keep Brian dependent on their relationship, but not enough to actually help Brian grow as a person. This is classic emotional manipulation. Stewie has identified Brian's weaknesses and uses them to maintain control over their relationship. He offers Brian intellectual stimulation and adventure that Brian can't find elsewhere, creating a situation where Brian becomes psychologically dependent on Stewie's attention. The most disturbing aspect is how Stewie reacts when Brian tries to form relationships with others. He becomes jealous and possessive, often sabotaging Brian's attempts at happiness with other characters. This isn't the behavior of a true friend. It's the behavior of someone who views others as possessions. Let's talk about something that will completely change how you view Stewie's character. The show's writers have included subtle hints that Stewie may not actually be as intelligent as he appears. Instead, much of his advanced knowledge and technological ability may be the result of accessing information from alternate dimensions or future timelines. Think about it logically. How does a 1-year-old acquire the knowledge necessary to build time machines, death rays, and mind control devices? Even accounting for the show's absurd universe, this level of technological sophistication requires decades of study and experience. The answer may be that Stewie isn't learning this information in the traditional sense. He's accessing it through his interdimensional travel abilities. This would explain why his knowledge seems to appear spontaneously, and why he sometimes knows things that haven't been invented yet in his timeline. If this theory is correct, it raises disturbing questions about Stewie's true nature. Is he actually a 1-year-old human, or is he something else entirely? The show has hinted at supernatural elements in Stewie's character that go beyond simple genius-level intelligence. This would also explain why Stewie's personality seems to shift dramatically between episodes. Different versions of Stewie from alternate dimensions might be influencing or occasionally replacing the original. This isn't just speculation. There are episodes where multiple Stewies appear and they have distinctly different personalities and moral frameworks. The financial implications of Stewie's inventions reveal another dark secret about his character. Throughout the series, Stewie has created technology that would be worth billions of dollars in the real world. Time travel, teleportation, advanced robotics, genetic manipulation. These are technologies that would revolutionize human civilization. Yet Stewie never seems interested in using his inventions to improve the world, or even to improve his family's financial situation. The Griffins continue to live in a modest middle-class home despite having access to technology that could solve most of humanity's problems. This reveals something deeply selfish about Stewie's nature. He's not interested in helping others or making the world a better place. He creates advanced technology purely for his own amusement or to solve his personal problems. The potential benefits to humanity are irrelevant to him. Even more disturbing is what this says about his view of human suffering. Stewie has the ability to cure diseases, solve poverty, prevent wars, and eliminate countless sources of human misery. His choice not to do so suggests that he views human suffering as either unimportant or potentially entertaining. The show's handling of Stewie's relationship with his parents reveals some of the most psychologically complex aspects of his character. His hatred for Lois isn't just typical mother-son conflict blown out of proportion. There are hints that Stewie's hostility stems from a deep-seated fear of emotional vulnerability. Lois represents everything that threatens Stewie's carefully constructed identity. She's emotionally intuitive. She sees through his intellectual pretensions, and she offers the kind of unconditional love that Stewie finds terrifying. His plots to kill her aren't really about hatred. They're about eliminating what he perceives as a threat to his psychological defenses. Peter, on the other hand, represents everything Stewie fears becoming. Peter's intellectual limitations, emotional openness, and general contentment with life are the opposite of everything Stewie believes makes him superior. His contempt for Peter is actually a projection of his own insecurities about masculinity and emotional expression. The most tragic aspect of Stewie's character is that his intelligence isolates him from the very connections he desperately needs. He's created an identity based on intellectual superiority that prevents him from experiencing genuine emotional intimacy with others. This psychological isolation explains many of Stewie's more extreme behaviors. His violence, manipulation, and general disregard for others aren't signs of inherent evil. They're desperate attempts to feel some kind of connection or control in a world where his intelligence makes genuine relationships nearly impossible. The show's writers have included several episodes that hint at what Stewie might become as an adult, and the implications are truly disturbing. Future versions of Stewie are typically portrayed as either megalomaniacal world leaders or completely isolated hermits. Neither option suggests healthy psychological development. This raises uncomfortable questions about whether Stewie's character arc is actually a tragedy disguised as comedy. Are we watching a brilliant child slowly transform into a monster because his intelligence prevents him from developing normal emotional connections? The most chilling aspect is that Stewie seems aware of these potential futures, but appears unable or unwilling to change course. He's trapped by his own psychological defenses and his need to maintain his identity as intellectually superior to everyone around him. One of the most overlooked aspects of Stewie's character is his relationship with technology and how it reflects his view of human relationships. Stewie frequently builds robots, artificial intelligences, and other mechanical beings to serve his needs. But pay attention to how he treats these creations. Stewie programs his technological creations to be completely subservient to his will. They have no independent thoughts or desires that might conflict with his own. This reveals his ideal relationship dynamic. He wants connections with others, but only if they involve complete control on his part. When his creations do develop independence or challenge his authority, Stewie typically destroys them without hesitation. This pattern reveals how he would likely treat human relationships if he had the same level of control over people that he has over his inventions. The most disturbing example of this is how Stewie reacts when his creations show genuine emotions or desires for independence. Rather than being proud of creating truly intelligent life, he views their independence as a betrayal and responds with violence. This suggests that Stewie's inability to form healthy relationships isn't just due to his intelligence or psychological issues. He fundamentally doesn't understand or value the autonomy of others. He wants connection, but only on his terms and only if it doesn't challenge his sense of superiority. The show's exploration of Stewie's moral development, or lack thereof, reveals some of the most troubling aspects of his character. Throughout the series, Stewie has numerous opportunities to learn empathy, compassion, and genuine care for others. Yet he consistently fails to internalize these lessons in any meaningful way. What makes this particularly disturbing is that Stewie clearly understands moral concepts intellectually. He can discuss ethics, philosophy, and the difference between right and wrong with sophisticated language and apparent understanding. But this intellectual knowledge doesn't translate into emotional understanding or behavioral change. This disconnect between intellectual and emotional intelligence suggests that Stewie may be fundamentally incapable of genuine moral growth. He can understand why others value compassion and empathy, but he cannot experience these emotions himself in any authentic way. The implications of this for his future development are truly frightening. A person with Stewie's intelligence and technological abilities, but without genuine empathy or moral constraints, represents one of the most dangerous personality types imaginable. As we reach the end of our deep dive into Stewie Griffin's disturbing psychology, it's clear that this character represents far more than simple cartoon comedy. The writers of Family Guy have created a complex psychological portrait of a brilliant but fundamentally damaged individual whose intelligence has become both his greatest asset and his most dangerous weakness. Stewie's story serves as a dark commentary on the relationship between intelligence and emotional development. His character suggests that intellectual ability without emotional growth and genuine human connection can lead to the kind of isolated superiority complex that historically produces some of humanity's most dangerous individuals. The most unsettling aspect of Stewie's character is how his journey reflects real-world concerns about gifted children who don't receive proper emotional support and guidance. His psychological isolation, manipulative tendencies, and inability to form genuine relationships are all documented risks for highly intelligent individuals who don't develop healthy coping mechanisms. What makes Family Guy's portrayal particularly effective is how it disguises these serious psychological themes within absurd comedy. Viewers can laugh at Stewie's antics while unconsciously absorbing a much darker message about the potential consequences of emotional neglect and intellectual isolation. The show's writers have created a character who forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of intelligence, morality, and human connection. Stewie Griffin isn't just a funny cartoon baby. He's a warning about what happens when brilliance develops without wisdom, when intelligence grows without empathy, and when technological ability advances without moral development. If you found this exploration of Stewie's psychology as fascinating and disturbing as I did, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden meanings behind your favorite animated characters. Leave a comment below with your thoughts about Stewie's character development and whether you think there's hope for his psychological growth. And if you're ready to have your mind blown again, check out our video about the dark secrets hidden in SpongeBob SquarePants that will completely change how you see that show forever. Trust me, once you see what we've uncovered, you'll never look at Bikini Bottom the same way again.